So, welcome back to part 2. This will be the painting and weathering. We're going to start off real simple with Tamiya XF1 as our primer. I will go through the whole process of priming, you know, showing how many parts there are to prime at least. It can be rather exhausting with a Tiger because you get focused on the hull and the turret and you forget about the 48 wheels and the track legs and all the other bits. I'm using my very cheap airbrush here. I don't think I will be anymore. This build was very important for me as a modeler in that I got really good at thinning paint and figured out how to use some airbrushes I thought weren't working. Ends up that was my problem, not the airbrush's problem. So, thinning paint, yes, gotten good at that now. So here we are, you can see the wheels and the sprockets on skewers behind. Yeah, Tamiya paint, people had told me always thin, 2-to-1 paint thinner, and in the end, that does not work for me. What works for me is dumping paint in a cup and mixing it with thinner until it's milky, and then it looks right when it goes on. Ratios never work for me, so I had to use all these crap airbrushes, and I'd have all these awful times because I was simply overthinking thinning paint, and on this build I finally got it right. So here we are priming the AFV Club workable tracks. Shrouds can be annoying because they have two sides. So here is an example of poorly thinned paint. I never stripped this. Now this build was stripped many, many times that I did not film because nobody wants to watch me strip a model with Windex, but parts of it, like the part I'm painting right there, I stripped and repainted after this was shot, and this side as well. The other side I didn't, and you'll see over the course of when there's clear coats and weathering go on that there's a drastic difference between the way that each side of the tank takes weathering and other things that I do to it. So again, as I always do though, I'm just using Tamiya XF60 as my base coat because I really like it and it's really easy for me to find it. I like the alcohol-based acrylics. I haven't tried anything like Vallejo's Model Air yet, but I might. Or MIG or any of the other stuff you hear other people using. So that's a quick wheel mask. I order those occasionally. I also have the Alliance metal masks, which are only for one wheel per. It's a convenience product, yes, but I like them very much. When you pop them out, if you haven't clear coated or let the paint cure, you'll scrape off some of the dark color as well. So in this, I did have to go back and touch up the rubbers of the wheels. But it's so fast. So there I am, touching it up. So, Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force Brown. That is part 1 of my track painting method. The reason I chose it was I went and looked at the Vallejo track primer and then just tried to find some Tamiya paint that closely resembled it. In the end though, I used the track primer for something totally different and I used this brown as my base for tracks. It can be annoying to paint workable tracks, but I'm really a fan. So here's my camo pattern. This is again Tamiya's Field Gray. I just like how it's more green, sort of a lighter green instead of like a dark green. I wung this. I kind of just wing it when I paint camo. And that can be really rewarding or really detrimental. So you're seeing some stuff here that I kept. Some of this I'm like, yes, yes, I love this. And then sometimes I'm like, ah, no. Like right there I was too far off. And I hadn't really mastered the thinning of this paint yet, so I am still pretty new to airbrushing, so I'll forgive myself. But the problem is that because I stripped the turret roof many times after this video was shot and kept repainting the camo on the roof, I got better with the thinning and the painting, and you can tell. Like, I like how the overspray looks on this model because it kind of, I feel like I can see a guy thinning a can of paint with you know, gasoline and spraying it in the field, where it looks kind of crap, like he painted it in the field in Russia. But then when I eventually stripped this roof here and repainted, I had gotten a lot better with painting, and it was much tighter lines. And maybe I got caught up in the fact that I was doing well and didn't focus on what I should have been, which was matching it, but whatever. It's good enough. I'm very critical of my own work. That's how I am, and so be it. I'm still very happy with the overall result of this kit, so you can see there on the roof, though, I didn't know what to do. I had no idea how to connect those lines. I came from the bottom and the sides, and I was like, yes, yes, but I had no idea how to fix the top. That is Panzer Aces track primer, and what I use it for is tow cables. I think it looks like a nice, barely rusty steel color, so I struggled for a long time to find a tow cable color, and this is what I use now, and I think it looks great. You can wash it with red as well, or a rusty color if you want, or a nasty, dark, oily color. But it's a great base. These are very hard to paint. This is the first time I'd use a brush that small, and it's coming very, very handy. So I pop off the track change cable and paint it this way. Just to get a couple of clamps that are the right color. I don't know that it was really worth it, but, you know, whatever. It is super easier to paint them that way, though. Just make sure you thin the paint or you'll fill in cracks there. Dark Rust. Panzer Aces. Great stuff. It's what I use as a base for all kind of mufflers and exhaust pipes and stuff. It's thinned pretty heavily with water, by the way. It does not brush well if you don't thin it with water. Utilizing the paper mask to protect the hull, one of my favorite things. Now this is a mixture of Vallejo's new airbrush metal paint. I think it was burnt iron and black. I'm on a mission to find a singular color, and the one I got was a little too metally yet, so I'm still looking for a real dark paint color that's metally that I can use for this. I don't mind mixing paint, I have a lot of kits, and sometimes I just want to build and paint and not have to worry about it. So this is Panzer Aces Old Wood. I think that I will make getting realistic wood one of my goals here, but I just went with this. I didn't use any heavy oils or anything on them, which I think you can get really good wood effects, but to date you know, this looks okay, but it could be better. Again, tiny brush. This is Panzer Aces Shadow Flash, which I use as the Bakelite, which was like a sort of plastic the Germans used, or similar to plastic. It's a resin, I think. This is Vallejo Model Color Black. These tracks are incredibly hard to paint when they're on the tank. I can't express it enough how difficult they were to paint. Like, that's just how it is. You like little bit, get some more paint, little bit. There's no way to smoothly paint them, and it's incredibly frustrating, actually. Turn the turret, look at the bottom, oh, look at all I missed, and then you paint that, and it takes a long time. The pad on the cupola hatch I mixed a little green in with, try to make it look sort of leathery. I don't know what it was really made out of, but maybe rubber. That is Vallejo's Flat Earth. Kind of a... I don't know. It looks alright when you wash it, but again, not the most convincing wood, but I also use it for the barrel cleaning rods. So that's future. I still use it because, you know, you get good results of something, you go back to it. I do have Alclad Aqua Gloss, and I have Tamiya's clear, and I have a few other clears, but for this build I just didn't want to mess with anything. Just wanted to make sure that it worked, so I used what I knew would work. Again, like priming and base coating, you forget how many parts or sub-assemblies these tanks have until you start clear coating, because you get a part done and you're like, yes, and you're like, oh right, there's a turret, and then you get that done, you're like, oh right, there's the tracks, oh right, there's 48 wheels, and it's exhausting. It really is, physically, and sort of you get defeated a little bit. At least I do. You got to break these things up. That's why these things, these videos take me so long to make, is that not only am I doing these things, but I'm filming these things, and it can beat you down a little bit, modeling, and it should still be fun. So if it does that, you gotta step away. These tracks can be a pain in the butt to clear coat. So here we are doing sprockets, because I just remembered that there was a more to the tank. That's that, I'm like, I'm done. Oh wait. And the idlers, then we'll get to the field of wheels. And I was foolish enough to take them off their skewers. It makes them tough to handle as well. So, MIG dark wash, some Wilder thinner. Step 1 of track weathering. Over top of the Japanese brown, we just pretty thinned dark wash. Now I do this on like every set of tracks I ever do. It's pretty good. Normally if I do magic tracks or something, I'll just do this and then paint the raw metals, and that's it. I'll call it a day. So, but on this one, I actually do the tracks twice that you'll see, and that's a little strange, but that's what I did. So here's my decals. These are Techmod aftermarket Tiger 1 early, so I can get 1331. My method for decals is water, just, and then get them where they need to be, and then microsol over top of that, let that set, and then Walther's solve a set over top of that. So like a 3-stage. It's probably overkill, but it works. I think the microsol did fine. That's what I'm putting on there with the blue brush. So the little transparent green one is for water, see? And then I have a separate brush for each solution. So that would be microsol right there. Decals went really well on this one. Nothing wanted to silver or anything, which is a nice change of pace. I think I'm finally just getting my workflows down, but I've been doing this about 2 years, and every build there was like one decal that would just not want to work right. If I had one complaint, it would be this one in 31. I wanted to conform to that vision slot a little bit better. It does sit on it. It doesn't stand proud or anything, but it also doesn't look painted on necessarily. So maybe when you do a thing like that, you should use dry transfers or stencils or something. I don't know. It looks alright. I'm happy with it. Now this would be salt set, so once they're all done, I'll go back over everybody and make sure they stay down. So that's Model Color Natural Steel. This is the first time I'll be doing the bare metals in the tracks. Wasn't happy with this paint very much, and the reason for that is it's got an odd pigment. It has like a glittery look to it. It looks like paint, almost looks like craft paint. I got an okay result with it. I had to fight it for a long time though. But so each link has 4 surfaces that would be bare, and there's 96 links. So if you see what I'm doing here, I'm cleaning up the areas like right there that are on the inside. That's a part that wouldn't touch the ground, so it wouldn't be silver. So I go link by link, turning them. Yep, there's another one. Clean it off. And I had to do that for every single link on both sides. But there you can see that you can't see any silver where it shouldn't be, and it's one of my pet peeves. It's happened on some of my older builds. So here we're going through the guide horns. They also get polished. I try to make it look random because that's kind of what they look like in pictures. Then I get a little sloppy on the inside because you can't really see that part. And on steel wheel Tigers, it would make sense that that would be steel. I don't think it would on this one as much though. Because they have rubber tired wheels, so. But whatever. You'll never see it. And then again, the same natural steel paint on the idler. You can see the pigment there. It has that glittery look to it. Not a fan. So I've replaced it since with dark aluminum from the new Vallejo airbrush metal paints that came out. It does kind of give the idea that it's like flaked off paint, but it looks kind of crap, so I don't want to use it anymore. So there's the guide, or the sprocket teeth. So we got pigments, dark European terrain and dark Russian earth. These are from Wilder's gunpowder line. Now I wanted the tracks to look kind of Russian, so I just went at it. I didn't know what the result would be, so it's a little bit ballsy. And so there I got it to a point, started adding some more of that dark European earth. I'll be honest, I thought I'd ruined everything, because I liked the way they looked before, and I got these on. I love the tone, but it didn't. I covered up the metal, and I was like, I don't know if I like it. So then I just bit the bullet, and I'm like, alright, let's set it in with thinner. So here's what it looks like when it's done. The tonal variation is very nice. I'm very, very surprised and very pleased. So I immediately went to work to make the other run look as much like that one as I could. I still had the mixed up pigments, so that wasn't a problem. Basically just trying to very quickly recreate the exact same process. Setting it in with thinner again. Still didn't know what I was going to do. I wanted the bare metal exposed because on Tigers you always see that. But so here's the dark tan filter, again from Wilder. I try to follow the rain streak motion, like always following gravity. Cleaning off my brush after I dip it in, and then taking as little as possible. You can kind of see how subtle it is. Maybe you can't see it at all. I'm not really sure how well it reads on camera. I mean, I'm watching the footage right now, and I can't really tell what I'm doing. So, there's a slight tan to it. It's a odd process because it's not very easy to spot. Here on the turret, again, we're doing the directional streaks following where the plate bends. On the hull sides as well. Or the turret sides, rather, sorry. I'm not sure that the effect is really noticeable, or, you know, whether I'd do it again, but, you know. So here's my dot filter. These are older oil paints that I had laying around. I have some 502 Untitled as well, but these are just generic, you know, burnt umber, yellow, ochre, and white. I did let them sit out on cardboard for a while to lose some of the oil because they're sort of gross, and then let them sit on the model a little bit before stumping them down. I really like the effect. This is when I kind of fell in love with this build. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done, I think. Everything worked out pretty well, so... But this is when I started noticing. I'm like, hey, that looks pretty good. My order of operations was very different here, but than it was, say, on the Packboardy video I did, but not drastically. It's just I went filter, dot filter, pin wash. So, like, that's very different than previously it would have been pin wash, then dot filter, so... Trying to keep dark dots around details and stuff like they say to, but I wasn't terribly careful with where I place these dots. Love that effect though. Really makes it look kind of awesome. Lots of white, of course, and yellows because I wanted to make it look sort of faded and dirty. Not so much dark, I didn't want to darken it too much. So, stumping it down again, very heavy on the turret roof, because that would be very dirty. Make sure you clean off the brush, don't oversaturate with thinner as well, because, you know, you want it to look correct. And you can also go back over with a dry brush later and blend it out a little bit. So here's a pin wash. I know that I started it this way, and then eventually I actually went back and re-clear coated to make sure it was behaving how I wanted it to, because I was getting kind of odd results. But this pin wash is MIG's engine grease while there's thinner. Turned out pretty well. Maybe a little bit lighter than I'd like. I'll have to get some black 502 paint, but looked pretty cool. Pin washing can be a little tedious on a tank when there's so many pieces. And I noticed when I was editing this together, I did skip, you know, one or two places where you're like, ooh, if anybody noticed that, but no big deal. These welts look really cool once they get a wash in them. So make sure you hit every detail, of course. This was definitely an important phase in this build where I started to notice I was liking where it was going. This is the first time I washed the running gear. I did this twice as well. So I did the tracks and the running gear twice, basically, because I just didn't know what I wanted. You can see the wash is working really well on this real stuff. The exhaust rods look pretty good too. At this phase, everything was going pretty well. So here we're cleaning up the wash. You want it to be in line with those details. Another very important phase, when you start to see the details pop out. And cleaning up the excess wash is quite important. You don't want it to look goofy. And so that, you know, it takes a while. You spend a lot of time with the kits in these situations. You get to know the surface of these tanks quite well. So, tedious, yes. Worth it, totally. Just cleaning up wash. But, I mean, the dot filter was one important step, and then once the wash was on there, I was quite pleased. Of course, tons to clean up on the lower hull. I went a little heavy on the 5-0s. I come back and laid some more on there, and on those fuel filler and radiator caps. Wow, probably a little too heavy. But I like washes like that. But here you can see that was real thick. But it leaves a great line of grime when it's that thick. If you can clean it up right. Cleaning up the wheels. Not much to say about that, really. When you add a little thinner, the capillary tends to take it straight to the details you want it on. Looks pretty sweet. So, the sponge chipping technique. This is Vallejo's Middlestone with white lightened up, quite light, and very sparse, very subtle chipping. Pretty happy with how this came out. I just did little bit by little bit. And it's tedious, and it's actually more exhausting to me than some other parts of these builds, because you're trying to be very, very careful and dab very lightly, and it kind of strains your arm and your brain. I found I had to take breaks. So going all over the tank, bit by bit by bit. Takes a long time. I like those chips in the middle of plates and stuff. I'm not brave enough to do them all the time, but they are very cool details. So German Camo black brown and a tiny little brush. Painting inside of the lightened Middlestone with that rusty brown color. Make sure if you're doing this, don't paint circles. So here I'm varying the shape of something so it looks more real. I'll paint brown all over the place, not just in the yellow. But tiny, tiny. The smaller the better, they always say, and they are right. I'm in my job where I teach video game artists how to make textures. I talk about the light color pass as a scuff pass, and the dark one is like a, you know, the chip metal pass. But that's not necessarily always true, but it seems to work well explaining it to them, where, you know, there isn't lighter yellow paint underneath the yellow paint, but when you damage the paint, it can get scuffed, or it's fresh. Like, let's say the outside paint is dirty, and that's cleaner because it got scraped, and, you know, it's an important part. Most edgeware is lighter colored, not darker. But again, very tedious. Just bit by bit, going around every little bit of chipping I did, making sure to add some dark stuff there and some dark stuff where I hadn't done any. Takes a very long time. But it's worth it, for sure. Scratches like that, which aren't just little dots, I think look really great. I'm not really brave enough to do more of them, but like these little dots here, some of my favorite stuff on this build, or just those little dings. Chipping the turret roof, getting close to the end here. So now we're using Wilder's dark rust effect and orange rust effect, randomly covering each chip with these enamel products. So basically you dab it there, you leave it there, and you clean it up is the idea. And what it will mimic is the effect of rust seeping into the paintwork. I'd never tried this before, but I do like the results, so I think I'll keep doing it. So, here we are cleaning them up. Just kind of keep your eye on these. It's kind of fascinating to me how quickly it starts to look like rust instead of just paint. Like right there. I really like that. Because whatever you leave just looks like it's bleeding through the paintwork. Creates a really nice effect. Right there, I like that as well. So you do need to make sure that you clean any of these things up, because if you miss one, it's going to look ridiculous. But super pleased with the effect. It ties the two tones of chipping together. It gives the vehicle an overall, tetanus shot feel where you're like, hey, and I think it was very, very successful. I'm very pleased with that technique. Here I'm using the Vallejo metal dark aluminum to chip up my tools a little bit. I think I did it too subtly, but there's the paint right there. And then I do this again on my tracks. Same process as before. 4 surfaces per link. 96 links at least per side. Just very tedious work. Worth it in the end, in my opinion, but a lot of work. But this paint goes on much, much better. And then here's the problem I'm talking about. So if you look at it from these angles like that or like that, you can see those little bits of paint that shouldn't be there. So I use this stumpy brush and some water. And again, just go through. And because they've been clear coated, I can just scrub that paint off. Takes quite a while, but I did. So now we're into pigments in the wheels. I didn't know what I wanted right away. I thought I was going to do some like crusty bits of mud and stuff, kind of just like you're seeing there. And I just, use thinner to set it and walk away, and it didn't really turn out that way. So what happened was, I overdid the pigments, trying to match the tone of the tracks because I really love the tracks. And here I am setting it. Once I had set it, I realized that after it dries, it just looks like sand. Which is not what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted, and that's always bad. I think if you don't know the effect you want, you just start diving in. With things like pigments or enamel effects, you can really burn yourself. So luckily these are rather easy to reactivate and malleable. So here's what I did. It was too strong. I dry fit everything together. So then I just gobbed thinner on and removed all the pigments. And this kind of behaves like AK dust effects, I guess, because it's the same idea. It's thinner and pigment. So I just clean the things off as well as I could. When my brush goes off screen here, what I'm doing is just wiping it on paper towel and then getting more thinner, cleaning it off. So then what you end up with is dried pigment around the rubbers of the wheels and the inside of the wheel. And I kind of like that because I wanted to see some of the Dunkelgelb on the wheel surface. So this is another wheel. Again, so many wheels on a Tiger. I had to do this on every one. But getting towards my end result, you know, not taking a misstep with pigments is a loss. I just did what I could to clean it up. But then I liked the way they looked, so I needed to match the sprocket to it. So then I have to quickly recreate my mistakes, which is a very strange procedure, but I seem to have to do it all the time. Like, well, I like what this looked like, but, you know, got to recreate it. So that's what it looks like with and without pigments there. So basically quickly dusting on all the exact same pigments, setting all the exact same pigments, waiting a while, covering them in thinner, removing them. Just trying to get the same look, you know. You want a certain homogeneous effect on your running gear. And they need to blend into each other, and they need to blend into the track links as well. So, cleaning everything off. One of the problems, though, was that I had done that wash earlier, and I lost some of that detail, so. These rust pigments. This is Wilder's Red Rust, Light Rust, and Burnt Rust. So, I go with the red first, then the light, then I seal it with thinner. This is how I've been doing pigments on exhaust for a long time. It's basic and whatever, but it looks okay. I think if you dabbed them on top of the thinner or a fixer, maybe if you get a little more texture, then I'll put some of that burnt rust on top. I don't like to use too much of the yellow because it can overdo it really quick. Then I'm on the bottom, doing the exact same process real quick. Once they dry, they look pretty good, so I'll glue on the shrouds. Then I tip up the model this way, and then I'm using iron oxide from Vallejo Pigments. Just feeding it into the inside of the shrouds. I'll set it, doesn't matter if it sets the top of the exhaust again, and I dab some on the back of the engine deck as well to give it kind of a Soot look to it. I really like the way that came out. So here we are doing pigments on the spare tracks. Again, same Wilder pigments, red, light, and burnt rust. Not much burnt on these because they're just sort of flash rusting, and it's a really sensitive thing for me. I want to get like a slight rust patina on the tracks, knowing that they were painted black in the factory, but knowing that they flash rust very quickly. But this vehicle's only been in the field a little bit, so I want it to have this sort of rusty look, but something that was painted black that is now turning rusty. I worry about this way more than I should. But it's an important part of your tank, and it stands out, you know. So here I am setting it again. Now we're doing the spare track links on the front. I will suggest to you that if you do anything that I did in this video, don't do this, which is use AFV Club workables as your spares in the front, because you'll need to clean up those ejector pin marks, which I don't do, because normally they're hidden and they're pretty obvious right there. So, Ryfield's workables, or even the ones that come in dragging kits, are better. The ones with separate guide horns, but whatever. I covered it up with some dirt pigments, but. Here we are again doing a pin wash, because I had lost my pin wash detail when I did all that pigment stuff where I cleaned them off. So that was one problem with not sealing them, was that I had multiple oil or pigment related enamel related products that if you don't seal in between, you can mess them up. You can also blend them together, so it can be kind of cool, but what I decided to do was just go back over top of the pigments again with MIG's engine grease, thin down with thinner, just to pop some contrast into those wheels, because they look just like very bland. So here we are cleaning it off, and now I'm starting to finally like the look of the running gear. I wanted it to look newish, but dirty, and a little grimy. I think it worked out okay. Cleaning off the sprocket. I left this a little heavier than I think I normally would. But I think I could even still go back if I wanted to. So now we're adding pigments to the lower hull. Again, we're starting with Wilder's Dark Russian Earth. Actually, it's Brown Russian Earth. And then I've got the Dry Russian Earth as well. So first the dark brown one, and then the dry one. Basically, it's an odd brown tone, almost like it looks purple to me. I know it sounds weird to say. And then a real light one. Mixed together, they look great though. So here's the dark one going on. I'm rather liberal with it. And then I'll seal it in. And then I'll come back in with the dry Russian Earth. And then I'll seal that in, and then blend them together. So it's, you can see that red brush there has some Tamiya tape around it. That means it's used for enamels or oils. Any brush I have that has that little ring around it, that's what it's for, so I don't get confused and ruin brushes. Here I am blending it together. That's kind of an important phase. So I'll just use extra thinner and blend them on. Now we're on the bottom of the hull. I do this to the front and the rear. Quickly adding both pigments to it. You can't really see this, but I wanted to make sure in case you could that it was blended in with the rest of it. Alright, so final assembly. Now we're fitting the tracks to the sprocket. Then we add some glue to the idler wheel spot. Now this can be a bit fiddly, trying to get that idler in there. So I didn't put in this wheel, which you need to make this stuff fit, so the sprocket wasn't quite in there yet. So now we can start putting wheels on. The inner 4 wheels are first. I'm adding quite a bit of glue to each wheel when I do this. Making sure the idler tension is how I want it to be. And adding the inner wheels. Now these are sort of the load-bearing wheels. The outer 2 sets are sort of just aesthetic, so this is a very important part, trying to make sure these are sitting correctly, the tension is correct. So this side, I learned the lessons of the previous side, added the first station single and double wheels first, then kind of slid the sprocket on with quite a lot of glue on it to kind of hold it in place more. Putting larger amounts of glue where the idler goes. Now I had an issue with this idler. I had to pull him way back. I may have swapped sides of which track run I used for which side because it didn't fit the way that it had previously, but that seems to always happen. Adding my inner wheels again. This is always a very exciting time in the build, by the way. Fruition, this is. So, again, adding those double wheel stations on the inside. You can see that maybe that the idler's a little too far forward, getting too much sag, so I had to make sure it was in correctly. So here, gluing on the outer stations of the wheels. You have to be very careful to make sure these sit correctly. They, if you glue them on wrong, there's a lot of little bits that have to fit on correctly, like these little, caps that fit into openings, and if you don't quite it's hard to see them because, I mean, look at it, it's difficult, so just make sure you push them on correctly. And here's the outer wheels going on as well. So, the other side, the double stations, now I can easily push them against each other to get a tighter fit. So it's good to do this all pretty quickly, maybe using the slower drying glue, but now I'm fitting the outer wheels. And that will be the last piece. So, there it is, Wittmann's Kursk Tiger. Thank you very much for coming back. Sorry it took so long to get it up, it's a very long process, so I did my best. If you have any questions about anything, please just message me or say so in the comments, and I'd be glad to help. This has been a great build, so thanks for coming with me on it.